welcome to this conversation. Thank you so much for joining the tribe of Wild Truths. We're having conversations just to highlight the extent of the problems within the organisation and highlight why it's so important for members to vote in a certain way and act to create positive change. And we know that people don't like politics and don't like this chaos, but it's a really crucial time for people to get involved and to become well versed on what's been going on and what's happening with the proposed new constitution so that they can vote, being fully informed. So I know that you've got lots of info for us. So just if you can start just giving a bit of your background and then take it from there.
Yeah, I think, I guess for me, it's really important for volunteers to realize, I guess, how important they are to Wires. They are everything to Wires. It's what the pe public see, what the volunteers do, what carers, rehabilitators do, is what Wires is all about. And I think over the last 5+ years, volunteers get it, but I think there's been a disconnect between what the volunteers do and the important work they do and how our representatives, our board, value that, and how they, I guess, have begun to disrespect and not, and the lose sight of being representatives for everyone and their role in, I guess, working out how to support volunteers by governing well, governing to make life easier and better for the volunteers, and to manage an organisation that has paid staff whose role is to make life easier and to support volunteers. And we have definitely lost sight of that focus. The volunteers know that, and I would say every single one, would put animal welfare first. That's why they volunteer. So the volunteer's job is to make sure they are making life better for the wildlife they come into care. And then the board's role is to make life easier for the volunteers to do just that. And the paid staff are there to support and make life easier for the volunteers as well. And I think we've lost that over the last few years. And I think volunteers no longer feel supported or heard. And many aren't aware that so many of their colleagues have been, I guess, ambushed by some of the tactics that head office and the board are using at the moment to isolate people. When I started about 10 years ago, it was very supportive. We had a strong branch, great mentoring. People are willing to share skills. You had a list of people's phone numbers, suburbs, and addresses. And over the years, that's been eroded. And I think they are trying to isolate carers so that you are totally dependent on just yourself and you don't have that network of connection. And I think that is really important to get back to that. So across branches, across organisations, you're lifting each other up rather than tearing each other down. And if we can get back to that, I think everyone would agree Wires has grown and flourished. And if we can focus back on that, imagine what is achievable. It's just,
And
rather than
that's the
tearing,
essence. Yeah.
yeah, instead of tearing each other apart and working against each other, instead of using the big stick, punishment attitude that we see in operation at the moment, if everyone's going, well, how can I help you be better? How can I help you improve your animal husbandry, your skills? If everyone's working towards helping each other and improving that, that's what we're all here for. And that's where the outcomes for wildlife that are sick, injured, or orphan will be better. You'll get better outcomes. So that's what I would like carers that may not have seen their colleagues, they might not have witnessed what has been going on, just to realise that that is happening in the background they don't have to be involved in the politics, but they just need to know voting for a governance for wires that is ethical. Like, if, goodness me, if the board adhered to our policies and procedures and the constitution as voted for by the members, if they represented the members, we would have a voice. We wouldn't have to fight to just be heard. And I think that's where that disconnect is. And there's been, I guess, a lot of changes in head office. We saw 5 or 6 years ago turnover in paid staff, and what we thought was a great role being created for volunteer support was actually, I guess, it got bogged down in conflict resolution, and it was touted to be animal welfare, but in fact it was just, I don't know, interpersonal relationship conflict. And that's where we started to see the, I guess, the non-disclosure agreements being used to silence people, and people being isolated. They couldn't tell people what they were experiencing from head office. Threats of legal action, actual legal action being taken against people where they are, where I guess the head office tactics is to belittle and sideline you if you had any sort of, I guess, respect. If you were seen to be too big for your boots, any sort of tall poppy syndrome, they were just cutting them down. People that were highly skilled, years of experience, very generous with their mentoring. I think that tall poppy syndrome might have just been a threat to head office and the board. And that's where they started to target individuals to just, I can't even understand why, but must be some sort of power play. And at the end of the day, the carers aren't interested in that. They're focused on animal welfare. What makes life easier? What helps you provide better care for the animals that you are in touch with and are involved in their rehabilitation or treatment? And it just astounds me that this is going on. And most people wouldn't believe it unless they witness it. So that's why I guess I speak out, because every single carer is vulnerable to this sort of, I guess, belittling. And yeah, we deserve better. We definitely deserve an organisation that is governed well and governed, I guess, ethically and legally, and doesn't lose focus on being what the carers need. So I guess that's why I am speaking out and hoping
Absolutely.
people understand that.
I think
Yeah.
there's been a distinct lack of transparency, particularly in the last 12 to 18 months in the lead up to those three votes for the Constitution, which was proposed by Wires, which was voted down 3 times legitimately. And since then, it seems to have got worse in that, communication is extremely poor. They make these statements, they don't answer emails, they don't answer questions. So there's no transparency or clarity in any of this process.
And I think that comes back to, you're there to represent the carers. Wires is the carers. Wires was started by wildlife rehabilitators, and then it was just such a successful organisation. It needed representatives and boards and governance, and then it's so big, it needed paid staff to make, yeah, that whole idea that the staff is there to support the carers. I guess the carers are what should be driving Wires. What really concerned me when that new constitution was proposed, they changed the aim of Wires to be, the aim was environmental protection. And I thought, there's 4,000 carers that have signed up to rescue and rehabilitate injured, orphaned, and sick wildlife.
And there was
If we
no
want
mention of that in that
it,
proposed
and it was
constitution.
listed as a possible um, activity that Wires would undertake. It wasn't even a main aim.
Rather than their
And I think,
focus, yeah.
yes, there are 4,000 people that are trained, equipped, and I guess that's our purpose, to help wildlife. If we wanted to be environmental protection advocates, there are avenues to do that elsewhere. And by all means, that's a great kind of legitimate activity, but that's not what Wires is. That's not our strength. That's not our, I guess, the whole history in the background. What we do really, really well is train, support, and bring on new carers and equip them to help wildlife. And if that's not the aim, well, then there's 4,000 people that are not trained, not equipped, and are not aligned with that constitutional purpose to be environmental protection. It was just such a big change. I thought, where is the organisation going? Who's driving the ship? It's certainly not the 4,000 volunteers that people donate to Wires because of what the volunteers do. So I think keeping that focus and realizing just the carers do an amazing job, and they don't do it for the thanks. They do it because they know they make a difference in the lives of those animals that they are involved in rescuing or transporting to vets. And even if it is an outcome where that animal is so sick and injured it can't live, you have made a difference to that animal. So the organisation is you. The organisation is the carers. You're in charge, and you need to be defining the direction of where Wires goes. And this is your chance. And if they are not listening, then they're not the right board. They're not the right paid staff. If they are not making life easier and supporting the volunteers, they're in the wrong role. And by having a constitution where the members get to vote and have a say and are in, I guess, defining the direction of the company, that is what Wires is truly about.
Do you know the history of Wires? Like how long it's been going? Just for
Not a
interest's sake?
lot.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, I don't know, 30 years. I know I did a course one time and you sign in with your member number, and the person above me, I was at like 1,000 or 14,000 something or other number, and the person above me was 297. So they had been in for 30 or 40 years.
Right.
That is dedication. That is sacrifice. That is commitment. That, you know, the skill level is amazing. And we should celebrate the volunteers because they don't do it as a paid job. They don't do it for the accolades. They do it because they know they make a difference. So this is your organisation. Have a say and make sure that your voice is heard. If they, I don't know, well, now that there's members and authorised people, and that's at the point I resigned because I realised I had no voice. So I am no longer a registered carer, and that is a hard decision to make because I had put 10 years in and had an amazing support team, amazing people within our branch, across branches, outside the organisation. And to walk away from that was a really hard decision. But I could see how vulnerable we were as an individual. I couldn't keep, I guess, the emotional and mental anguish that it causes when you see other carers in court and realise they've been isolated. They have to financially defend themselves. There is no support from their organisation. In fact, it's their organisation making, the legal accusations against it. That is totally unacceptable. And it could happen to any one of us for any reason. It's not, it shouldn't be the first resort. Let's take someone to court and charge them with aggravated animal cruelty. there is a whole lot of process where we could have helped. Someone could have said, well, there's just so many other ways to find compromise and support a carer, even in during COVID, mind you.
Yeah.
There is legal action is the last resort. There should never be
Well,
that as
that
the first
whole
point of
process,
contact.
and we
It's
know,
mind blowing that that happened at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
It,
the
I
whole
just
process was
can't
flawed
explain.
from the
Yeah,
start.
but every single one of us is vulnerable to that because our organisation has lost track of building people up,
Mm.
using a carrot as an incentive to help you become a better carer, whether that's training or mentoring or equipment or however that is. They've lost sight of that and decided just to go down a punishment avenue. And I think that's just completely misguided. And this is your chance to get a board that represents you, keeps us focused on animal welfare issues and making us the best carers that we can. And that's that's where I feel with that misalignment. It's just there's just such a disconnect between that. The
So,
carers.
at what point did you leave, Liz?
I left after they did not accept my request to remain a member, and I refused to accept the forced constitution that was a click here on the weekend. And I refused to click a link and accept a constitution that I had not voted for.
Mm.
And I just realized, yeah, they're not going to ever listen to us. They're working out how to sideline the volunteers. So that's when I realized it was just not something I could, I guess, continue with.
Well, that's very sad to have lost you and your experience, and I understand why, 100%. But
Well, who can afford tens of thousands of dollars to defend themselves?
yes,
That puts your family at risk. If you are found to be, for example, a certain court case, if you have been found guilty of animal cruelty, you can no longer own a dog. You can no longer have chickens. You can no longer do that. Most of us are, I would say 100% of the volunteers are really passionate animal people. So most of us might have a rescue dog or two and chickens and I don't know, maybe a cat. I don't know. But to be able to not have your animals, you'd have to surrender them. I think that's completely unacceptable.
I
And
agree.
it puts you in a vulnerable position. I have 3 rescue dogs, 2 rescue cats, and to be told you would never be allowed to keep your animals and you'd have to surrender them and you may never be able to rescue or adopt another animal that needs a home, that's a pretty hard pill to swallow. And I just thought, this is not right. So, yeah, everyone's vulnerable to that. If our voices are not being heard and we're being ambushed and sidelined and not supported and not valued, not respected, and legal action is the preferred choice of discipline, this is not the organisation that it could be, and it's not an organisation I could remain with, and that's why I resigned.
Did you ever have a call from head office asking how you were or if you needed anything or, that sort of along that vein?
No, never. Many, many years ago, when there was an issue, um, and I think it was when there was a high turnover in staff in that volunteer support role. A couple of people rang and spoke to me to get my point of view on a particular issue, and then I never heard back. And they did their own investigation, and then they decided the branch coordinator had allowed carers to become overwhelmed. And it was just so disjointed from what the actual issue was. I just, yeah, I couldn't understand how they could come to a conclusion like that in something where there was a disconnect between um, someone asking me to take an animal and me saying, no, I'm at capacity. And it was something that could have been resolved with a couple of conversations, but no, they just shut it down and blamed someone else. And I think that's when we saw a lot more step up in not doing any conflict resolution. They were just choosing someone, allocating blame, and not communicating at
No
all.
discussion.
No discussion. Yeah. No.
So that's really what this is all about. Bringing it back to the foundation of the
Hmm.
way that it was set up. And it's, a volunteer group of
Yeah.
members working for members. And,
Yes.
we want this to go back to being a cohesive, supportive community run by the same,
Exactly.
with a
Imagine
really
what we're
open,
capable of
yeah, with
if we're
really
all
open
working.
communication and
Yeah.
transparency and, no secrets, no accusations, doing things the right way. If there's
Yeah.
any issues, sorting them out the correct way.
Yeah, I feel that there's a hidden agenda. And for the last 5, 6 years, I'm not the only one that's going, what is going on? We don't really know why they're taking wires in certain directions. There's no clear leadership. There's no communication. There's no continuity. And there's no connect to what WIRES is all about, which is the
Mm,
rescue and rehabilitation of wildlife. And
yes.
keeping that focus, getting back to that focus, lifting everyone up rather than tearing each other down. Um, yeah, we're well positioned to be, a leading organization in this rescue and rehabilitation. We've got the numbers, we've got the skills, we've got the knowledge, we've got so much high quality mentoring. There are just amazing people I've met through this organization that have been
Mm.
so generous, so supportive. And then every now and then they're just targeted for some unknown reason. Absolutely no justification in it at all.
Mm.
So, and
Yeah.
I feel that maybe if we have support, if we have knowledge, if we have experience, we're a threat of somehow to head office and paid staff. I can't imagine why, because that's the value of our volunteers.
Mm. Well, none of it's logical.
No.
No, nobody through the many, many, many conversations I've had over the last 5 years, no one can really come up with an answer for
Yeah.
why this is headed in this direction.
And I
And
hope the carers that haven't had any sort of interaction with people that have had horrible experiences will not understand it and they won't get it and they'll wonder why it's turned into this conflict. And I really hope most of them never ever experience it because when it happens, it is a living hell for our carers.
mm,
And no one deserves that. We deserve better. We deserve to be supported. And most of the organisation is like that, but they are just putting walls up and putting systems in place to keep us isolated. And
mm,
the whole 101 rescuer, when that was introduced in the branch level, we were all like, how is this going to work? They have no field support, they have no mentoring, they have very little training. Their only link is to head office. And it still astounds me that these people that are willing to work in this wildlife rescue and rehabilitation industry are given nothing.
mm.
And so it's,
Well, the fact that they've been deliberately isolated and,
why?
branch
What is
branch
the
members have been
benefit?
told to not communicate, it makes absolutely no sense because
No.
anyone needs a mentor when they're entering something
Mm,
new, particularly when you're taking care of another life. Whether you're
mm,
just picking one up off the side of the road and transporting it somewhere, you still need to be able to contact someone with a question and
yeah.
or whatever and just feel like you're part of a team because that's what you are.
Yeah. And half the time, we might know what we're doing with the animals, but even 10 years down, we check with each other, check in, double check we're doing the right thing, ask for a different piece of equipment where the teams I've been involved in have been amazing in terms of, I guess, the generosity of supplies, equipment, time, knowledge.
Mm.
And even when things are bad and you've lost animals that were really, really compromised when they come into care, that's really hard on animal people. And half
Mm.
the time, the mentoring is you haven't done anything wrong. It's okay. This happens. And you made that animal's, I guess, last time that towards their death a better death. If you've got them warm, quiet, dark, and to a vet, that's better than what they were going to get. And
Mm.
part of it is supporting the human side of it. And
Absolutely. And
I
that's
don't
been completely
think head
neglected.
office does that, and it takes a toll on people.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what the volunteers do, all respect. I've been there, I've done that,
Mm.
and I know how hard it is. And it's a hard job. And at the end of the day, if we're talking about the tail wagging the dog, that's what's going on at the moment. The volunteers are the body of Wires, and they should be directing how Wires flourishes into the future. And
Mm.
it shouldn't be the tail dictating that we're becoming an environmental protection organisation or whatever other, you know, hidden agenda they've got.
Mm.
It's the members that get to direct that. And this is why the Constitution and having a say and having a representative board that does actually listen to the members is so, so important.
Mm. And the only way that people are going to affect that change is to make an informed decision
Yeah.
and move in that direction where those four board members are replaced. And the question has been raised of, well, what if they're replaced by another four who do similar things? Well, I guess you have to take that chance because the current regime is not working.
Yeah. And I think that is, it doesn't matter who's in those roles. If there is organisation governance that has a process for raising special AGMs or having your voice heard, then it's okay because the system works.
Mm.
There is that chance to say, you're not focused on what you need to be, you're not doing your job well, you're in the wrong role. If you are not there to support the volunteers, if you're not there to make the volunteers' lives easier and better to do what they do best, then that's the wrong role. So the governance sticking to the rules, the policies, the procedures, they absolutely expect volunteers to do that. And it's not too much to ask our board to do the same thing. And it's their job to make sure that the paid staff are focused on exactly the same thing. Their job is to make sure the volunteers are supported and make their lives easier and better.
Mm.
They've only got paid jobs because people have donated because of what the volunteers do. We employ them. Well, the carers do. So
Yeah.
what the carers do employs those people. You're their boss.
Yeah.
And the corporate governance and the rules and the procedures and the constitution are the way to make sure that as the bosses, the company's going in the direction you want it to go in.
But unfortunately, the bosses are making up their own rules and not sticking to the current
Yes,
constitution.
they're
So,
not the bosses.
mm,
The volunteers are the bosses.
correct.
And I think they've lost focus of that. And
Mm,
at the end of the day, yeah, the volunteers are in charge and the others work for you.
yes. Because without the volunteers, there is no organisation. We keep
That's
bringing it back
exactly
to that
right.
also.
Yeah. People don't donate to Wires so that a person can be a board member. They don't volunteer. They don't donate to Wires to pay for a paid staff member.
Mm,
They pay because of what the carers and rehabilitators do day in, day out.
mm,
And then the other support roles are exactly that. They are there to support you, there to respect you and value you. And it's really important that if we're expected to abide by all the policies and procedures and improve our skills with ongoing training, we should expect the same of them. It's
Yeah,
it's not that much to expect them to adhere to, the company's own constitution.
absolutely. And I think this culture of intimidation, which is creating an enormous amount of fear and vulnerability among carers, is a huge issue. And the retention of carers is dropping off. Just because people are so afraid that they might be the next victim of whatever head office, decide to land on them.
And I think the vast majority may never see that, and that's fine. But if you actually find out the impact it's had on some of your colleagues, there is no way you'd stand by. And this is why I guess I speak out. There is no way we can let that continue. It's not fair, it's not right. And yes, I guess everyone's vulnerable, and that is totally unacceptable in a volunteer. Volunteers should never have to do that sort of defend themselves in court. The organisation should be standing with you. Whether they think you're right or wrong, they should still offer support. Yeah. And I really hope most people never get to see it firsthand, but don't belittle what has happened to our colleagues and what continues to happen. With so many non-disclosure agreements out there, we really don't have a full idea of what has happened to some people because
That continues to happen.
they are unable to talk about it. And that's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Liz?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a fair bit. I just want to focus back on working together, lifting everyone up, and it's all about supporting the volunteers that do the amazing work that they do. And if we can hold that focus, we can do anything.
Great points. Your screen's gone very strange for a second there.
Oh,
Oh, there we are. You're back. It was like one of those boomerangs on Insta
Oh,
for a
really?
second. Yeah.
we don't have great internet where we are.
No, that's okay. We got through this. I think we got through this well. The least number of technical issues anyway. So
Yeah.
thank you so much
You're
for
welcome. So I
being
guess
here.
with the voting, do you
Yep.
feel heard, represented or supported? And even if you're not aware, are you sure that everyone is being fairly treated? That's it.
Agree. Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Fingers crossed,
Thanks,
hey.
Yeah, I know. I really, really struggle not having a voice now and not being able to vote because
Well,
I have
you just had
resigned.
one, which is brilliant. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And I think
That's
if we can resolve this and it becomes an organisation to be proud of again, there'd be a lot of carers coming back.
100%. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because at the moment they're dropping like flies,
Yeah.
which is
And
sad.
that's
Sad for
just,
them as well because they like it's their life purpose. And to have that taken away from you for
mm,
unknown or ridiculous reasons is
mm.
heartbreaking, no doubt, for many.
I think so. And it's just knowing you can make a tiny little bit of difference is probably why everyone volunteers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said.